Hi, this is Theo from pocketblocks.com. Today I want to show you these two brush pens. They are made by Kuretake. These are the two Kuretake brush pens that I bought a few years ago. One is relatively new and the other one is worn out. So I'm going to show you the tips later on. But when you search for brush pens online, chances are you will see the brand Kuretake and the other brand is the Pentel Brush Pen. These two are the more commonly seen brands. I will do a short comparison with the Pentel Brush Pen later on in this video. But let's take a closer look at the Kuretake brush pens. Kuretake, they make several different models of brush pens. The one that I have here with me, this one is number 50 and this one is number 40. So I think they use some sort of numbering code for their brush pens. Number 50 has a glossy body and comes with a two-tone color, gold and black. Comes with a gold colored clip. And number 40 comes with a matte body. I think this is much nicer to hold. Non-glossy. It's a bit cheaper than number 50 as well. So number 40, I think it's a very nice pen to get. But these two pens, the construction is a metal body. Construction wise, it's really good. They come with a very nice cap as well, and it's shaped like a normal pen, so it's very nice to hold. Let's take a closer look at the nib. So let me uncap these two pens, these two brush pens. This is the brush Bristol. Let me zoom in closer for you to see. The one at the top is the worn out Bristol that I was talking about earlier. The bottom one is the relatively newer brush pen. So the difference between these two is the worn out one doesn't snap back to a point as easily. I'll demonstrate that later. But other than that, these two are identical and they use Sable hair for the Bristol, so they can get relatively sharp points. Let me show you the ink system that these two brush pens are using. When you first buy the brush pen, it actually comes with disposable cartridges. The ink is waterproof and it's very dark, so it's very good for drawing. But if you use up the cartridge, then you might have to buy additional cartridges and that would add up to the cost. But that's just one way to refill the pen. The other way is to get the platinum ink converter, like what I did for this particular brush pen. So this is the ink converter from platinum fountain pens. You can buy them easily online and it fits perfectly with the Kuretake brush pen. So with the ink converter, you can use any sort of ink or any color ink that you might want to use. One of the nice things about using a brush pen is it's almost like using a natural brush for drawing, except with the ink system you don't have to refill the brush. The other nice thing, of course, is the strokes that it can produce. Like you can get very thin stroke, almost hairline strokes, but you can also get very thick strokes if you apply the pressure. And if you want something that varies, like thin, thick, you can do that as well. This is good for Chinese calligraphy, but you can use this for drawing, of course. You can get thin. It does take a bit of a practice. So if you want thin, thick, and thin, then you will have to practice a bit. If you use the brush on the side very quickly, you can get the dry brush effect. And if you use it slowly, then you can use it to fill in black areas. This of course will use up quite a lot of ink, so it really helps to have a refillable ink cartridge inside. Another feature about the Sable hair is it tapers back to a sharp point with each stroke. So take a look at this. So I can start thin and thick, but each stroke that I start, it's always thin to thick. Another thing I failed to mention earlier is if the bristles get worn out, you can actually replace this whole section here. They actually do sell the replacement section So you can see this replacement section costs about US $10. The whole pen itself costs about US $30, but if you really love the feel of the natural hair, then you can get this replacement Bristol section when your Bristol gets worn out. Now let me demonstrate the one with the worn out Bristol. This is the one with the worn out Bristol, so that it still tapers back to a point. I think there's not a lot of ink inside this pen, so let me just use a bottle of ink and use it like a dip brush. So that's another advantage of this particular brush pen. You can use it like a brush and dip it into ink. So this is the brush pen that is worn out. For some reason, I can actually still get pretty sharp points. And I also want to show you that you can actually dismantle the top. Let me zoom in and show you. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a stray hair Bristol here. That's because I dismantled the top and put it back, and I caught one of the stray hair Bristols here. But let me show you how you can dismantle the top. I'll use a bit of tissue just to keep my hands clean. Basically, you just twist the top here. Twist it clockwise, anti-clockwise in a very minor manner, and just loosen the top, and then you see that you can actually pull this part off, and this will give you the whole Bristol. Why do I want to do that? I want to do this because it gives me access to the whole Bristol, so now it's an even bigger brush. I mean, there's no point in getting two exactly the same pens with the same Bristol unless you want one as a backup. But if I remove this top here, I can get a longer brush, and I also can get a shorter brush. So let me demonstrate what you can get with the longer brush. If you're going to be using the brush pen like this, then the ink system, the cartridge is not going to supply that much ink that fast to the Bristol. So when I'm using the pen like this, I like to bring out a small ink bottle and use it as a dip brush, I mean. So with the brush, when you expose the bristles like that, you can really cover very big areas. And it's a Sable, so you can taper the point back and get sharp points as well. But you can get even thicker strokes. Also, because it comes with a cap, you can use it to protect the Bristol, and you can put it into your pencil box, and that's pretty great. But if you want to put the top back, make sure you carefully slot it back in. I only do this when I think the Bristol is going to be worn out, so at least I don't waste the Bristol. I can use it like a big brush. So you can put the top back in. While I'm at it, I also want to compare it with the Pentel Brush Pen. This is the Pentel Brush Pen. It has a slightly longer Bristol, but the points that you can get is roughly the same. So I think the ink flow for this particular brush pen is a bit dry. Let me swap with another brush pen that I have. I usually have two backups just in case the ink runs out. So it's almost the same, except I think the ink flow for the Pentel is not as good as the Kuretake, but it's definitely very usable. Let me draw something with this brush pen. The ink flow is actually quite good. If you want the dry brush effect, you can go very fast. If you want it to be slow, then you will be able to get the sharp edges. And if you want to use the brush Bristol to block in black areas, you can do so as well. The Bristols are very sharp, so they are good for drawing things like hair. You get the natural stroke. This guy is smoking a cigar pipe. So You can get thin and thick variations. This is unlike fountain pens, which usually give you a uniform stroke. And if you go very fast, for the dry brush effect, you can get very textural look. So for areas that I want it to be like, say, sharp, I don't want the texture effect, I would go slower. For areas I want to block in, I will just use the side of the Bristol. So this is the hat that he's wearing, which is in the shade, so I'm just going to color it dark. This is the other color, which is also in the shade. Another way to use the brush pen for me would be to use it with a fountain pen. This sketch, for example, I'll use a fountain pen together with a brush pen. I use the fountain pen for the lines, and then I fill in the black areas with the brush pen. I do not use the brush pen for everything because using a fountain pen, it's much faster to sketch. If I were to use the brush pen for all the lines like this, it would be, for me, it would be a bit slower. So I wanted to finish this sketch quickly, so I use fountain pens and then block in the black areas with the brush pens. Lastly, I want to talk about the different type of ink you can use if you are using the ink converter. I have three choices that I recommend. The first one is Noodler's Bulletproof Black Ink. Second one is Sailor Kiwa Guru, and the third one is Platinum Carbon Ink. Noodler's Bulletproof Black Ink is 97% water-based, so it's relatively safe for use in a brush pen like this. These two other brands, the Sailor and the Platinum, they are made of nano carbon particles. They are made to be used in fountain pens. I suppose you can use them in brush pens as well, but I would recommend that you wash the brush pen maybe once a month. But overall, I would recommend the Noodler's Bulletproof Black Ink. But all these three inks, they are waterproof, so you can use the brush pen with watercolor if you are using these three inks. So you may be wondering whether or not you should get the Pentel brush pen versus the Kuretake brush pen. Well, the Pentel one costs about US $10 or more. The Kuretake costs about US $30 or more. It's 3 times more expensive than Pentel. However, remember that the Bristol replacement section is actually US $10 or more. So in the long run, replacement cost is going to be the same. So because of that, the upfront cost really comes from the pen body itself. This is a metal body versus a plastic body. Personally, I prefer the Kuretake body, but this is really just a personal preference. And in terms of the strokes that you can produce, when it comes to ink flow, I feel that Kuretake offers better ink flow. So there's a tendency for the Pentel brush pen to display more dry brush effect. So if you want really solid lines, very sharp edges, you will have to go much more slower with the Pentel, but Kuretake, you can get sharper lines relatively easier. But I have to say that this is just my personal observation. I know that some of you, there are people who tell me that their ink flow for their Pentel brush pen is terrific. But I've bought 3 Pentel brush pens so far. I still feel that the Kuretake offers better ink flow. But that's just my experience. Another advantage of the Kuretake is it uses, you can use it with the platinum ink converter. So when it comes to refilling the pen, in the long run, Kuretake is going to be cheaper. For the Pentel, they use only disposable ink cartridges, and it's of a special shape. So if you want to refill it, you can use a syringe, but it's not as convenient compared to having a brush pen that has an ink converter. So my overall recommendation, personally, I prefer the Kuretake. That's all for today's review. If you have any questions, feel free to post your questions in the comment section just below this video. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, do so for more art product reviews, sketching tips and techniques, art books, and sketchbook features. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Bye. See you next time.